Hello everyone, welcome to this live on why we attract emotionally unavailable people. In my case, I've had plenty of emotionally unavailable men and it's been so much fun. Anyways, today I have Jessica Smith joining to share her experiences, and I'm super excited to have her because she's an incredible love coach, and given her experiences, I think that she will have a lot to say about this conversation. So as this is getting started up, hello everyone who's joining. Thank you very much for joining this live. I'm super excited to talk about this topic because it is a very, very, very serious topic. And Jessica is here. I am going to just welcome her now to the live. Excellent. Jessica right now. Just waiting for her to come on and then we'll get this conversation started because this is a very big one. Hello Ben, thank you for joining. Jessica, hello.
Hello Ken, how are you?
I'm super excited, super glad to see you, and super keen to hear all the revelations we have to share about why we attract emotionally unavailable people in our lives.
I am excited to talk about this and to see you. It's been a lovely getting to know you and seeing your Instagram and everything that you're talking about. And I love our personal conversations. And it's so funny, you know, how the human experience is, and how you being a man, I'm a woman, you're in Australia, I'm here in the States, and we have so much in common. And when you and I talk, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm going through the same thing, or, oh, you know, I can relate. So I'm so excited that we're going to have this conversation about why we attract emotionally unavailable people.
I feel like just off the back of that, you know, despite the different geographies, the different demographics, the different everything, I have a funny feeling that our experiences regarding this topic are going to be scarily similar at times, maybe a bit
Yes.
different. But, you know, I'm really curious to hear how it all goes. But anyways, to start off with, I'd love to have you share with my audience who you are, what you do, and why you got into this field in the first place.
Oh, well, thank you. I am Jessica Smith. I'm a dating coach, and I host a Game of Love podcast, radio show. I'm an author. And my mission is in this world is to help people love themselves unconditionally and then have happy, healthy, thriving relationships. And so you and I are very similar in that regard. We are here of service to help people, and that's what I do.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think obviously knowing your history too of going from, you know, retreats, yoga, and also getting into this space to really help, especially a lot of women to overcome the day-to-day challenges they have interacting with people in their lives, particularly men in love, I think is just such an admirable mission to be doing too. So for those of you who don't know me from your audience, my name is Ken. I am a holistic healing coach. At the moment, I'm currently helping high-achieving coaches to step into the life they've always yearned for, but have been scared to step into by having them put themselves first. Now, interestingly enough, I feel like as high achievers, we do have a tendency to go out of our way for people, particularly emotionally unavailable people. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you would define emotionally unavailable people.
Thank you for asking. My definition on emotionally unavailable people, people who are detached, who are not fully invested. Sometimes they can show up very hot and cold. You know, they might be very interested one day or one date or 1 week or 1 month, and then all of a sudden they're just out. And a lot of times with emotionally unavailable people, we don't know exactly where we stand with them. We're always questioning, like, where are we? What are we? What's happening here? And then, you know, as far as how they receive love, how they give love is usually not up to our standards or our liking. So those are a few things off the top of my head that I can share. What about you? How would you define emotionally unavailable people?
I'd agree with everything you said, and I'd add to that by saying that they usually have what I call very addictive personalities, meaning that on the surface, they look like they have everything together. They usually have like high achieving jobs, particularly in law, engineering, consultancy, accounting. They are very high achieving type individuals too, in the sense that they focus on their work. And so when I said they have addictive personalities, what I mean by that is because they've suppressed a lot of their emotions, I find that a lot of them have a quality where in order to not think about their emotions, they will usually have drug addictions, alcohol addictions, they'll be workaholics, like that's usually a big one, and they'll even have things like sex addiction, porn addiction, a variety of addictive behavior to try and manage the underlying emotions that they never want to go near and touch. And so I think the challenge can be that we look to these people often with admiration and excitement because they're operating at such a very, what I call, high stress level. So what I mean by that is, if we look at the nervous system of the body and we think about it in terms of like, say, rest and digest or fight or flight, these people are on fight or flight like 99% of the time. They are hugely stressed in their bodies, and so they often come with a lot of excitement, which is the trap. Usually people, when they date, will go, oh my God, I've met this most amazing guy or girl. They're so exciting. They're so like into their career. They're so, you know, well orientated with their life. They seem to have everything together, which ironically enough couldn't be further from the truth. So I think that's where I'd start with that.
Yes. Well, I want to apologize for my dog right now that's barking probably at the mailman.
That's
um,
okay.
um, hey, everyone. I couldn't agree with you more that they're emotionally unavailable to the people that they are looking to date or they want to be in relationship with. Yet underneath the surface, there is still the need for love, and they're yearning for it. And standing between that need and that person, I think what you're speaking about is when they're addictive and they're high performing, high functioning people, they are just taking all of their angst and channeling it into their work or their addiction or whatever it is, because they are looking to fill that void, and they are also looking to control something. I notice they have a lot of like I they are so scared of being hurt that there's this, it really, being emotionally unavailable is really controlling the situation. They're mitigating their emotions. They are trying to keep people at bay and navigating that. And also, I think you're speaking about these people that they just have such a tight hold on many parts of their lives, and it's all symptoms of a greater issue.
I 100% agree with you completely. I think that they love control because, as you said, they don't want to be hurt. And I'd add to that too by saying that I think for them, they also have a threshold, meaning that when you're in love with them, they will hit a point where if you cross that threshold and they feel their feelings too much, they will run. They will bolt. And those that don't, who are on that emotionally unavailable spectrum, who don't, will usually start playing a variation of the hot and cold dance, I find. Like they start to become far less responsive. They'll run at the sight of conflict because they can't handle it. And that can also trigger a lot of abandonment wounds in people when they're going through those sort of situations too. I mean, it's interesting enough to watch because often people will come to, I don't know if people come to you like this, but I often get I've had a lot of guys and girls who'll come to me being like, oh, look, I dated this guy or girl and, everything was amazing. And then they start pulling away and I'm feeling really anxious. Have I done something wrong? It's like, no, you've done everything right. The anxiety that you're feeling is mirrored by the anxiety that they're feeling by being close to you. And it's horrific to watch and to feel.
It really is. And oof. Do you work with attachment theory?
I do, and I'm a big fan of attachment theory, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, it reminds me of the fearful avoidance, and
Yes.
uh, I'm going to speak from my personal experience. I'm very secure. However, if I start dating and catching feelings for someone who is fearful avoidant, that will send me into anxious
Yes.
anxious, and I'm like, where are you going? And then it kind of spirals into this unhealthy, toxic rotation. But yeah, it's just interesting how they will be really hot and cold, and it's because there's part of them that's really yearning for that connection, and they want to feel the love, they want to be in a relationship, and then they get to, like you said, they reach their threshold and they're like, nope, can't do it, and then they're out, and so they'll just go back and forth, and that's rough. That's really rough on people, and I've seen it in my clients over and over again that it creates a lot of anxiety.
It does. It does. And it's really interesting that we bring up attachment theory because I think this is a really important point to get across. I consider myself secure as well, and I'm exactly the same way. I don't think anyone's immune to the anxiety that an avoidant partner can bring you. And I mean, I'm super
Right.
sensitive to it. Like, I have dated guys where as soon as I start to feel that anxiety because there's a disconnect between their actions and their words, I am so on top of it now to the point where I'm like, I will not have that in my life because it is just so unhealthy. And I mean, granted, I've heard stories of how people have been able to communicate their boundaries to partners and been like, oh, look, I am able to work it with my partner. They've seemed to be, coming a bit closer. I have issue with that because it is like pulling teeth in the sense that trying to get someone across the line who is scared of their own emotions and yours and just wants space. I mean, I just say good luck to people in that context because it's just so hard. And the expectations too of both people are clearly not met. They're usually one person is pushing harder for the relationship because their needs aren't being met. And the other
That's
person's
right.
probably saying, oh yeah, sure, we'll go along with it. But they're just so fearful of getting close. And even to admit to that is hard work for them. And I remember actually there was this great line that Valerie from The Mindful Babe said. She said, it's like you're playing on their watch because they will never open up and disclose to you whenever they feel free to do so. Like, it's not a conversation where you get deep with them all the time. It's whenever they feel comfortable, and that can be
Yep.
once in a blue moon. So the
Yep.
real question I think we all have to ask ourselves is, how much are we willing to put up with before we realize it's just too much?
Ooh, boy, that is the question. And you are so right. You are playing on their watch because there is not the healthy back and forth give and take that, a good, healthy, reciprocating relationship will have. And it is always like pulling teeth. And I'm with you when I went on a date with a guy this year who was he told me via text that he was fearful avoidant, yet he was very communicative and he pursued me like crazy. And as soon as we sat down on our first date face to face, he's like, I am so nervous right now. I am so nervous. And he was like, his hands were shaking. And I'm like, we've been talking for like a month. And he's like, yeah, but I'm just so scared. And then he reiterated to my face that he was fearful avoidant. And I was like, this isn't just not going to work. And it was immediate. Like, we had a great date, but he went on to be exactly what he said. He told me he was fearful avoidant, and then he went on to be avoidant.
Of
And
course.
of course, and so it is about asking, how much are you willing to deal with? And for me, I'm like, it was one and done.
Yeah, I relate so hard to that. I think bless him for actually being honest with you and telling you I'm avoidant
Yes.
because I often get the opposite of that sometimes. Like, I get so many people self-reporting being like, I'm a secure attached person. It's like, no, you're not. Like, let's not lie about your attachment style here. Like, no, you're not. And
Right.
it just becomes so obvious because it's like, well, if you're not communicating clearly with me, the definition of secure is that you're clear and consistent, and I'm not seeing any of that. So, but anyways,
Yeah.
I think I would love to hear, you know, as we're moving this topic along, you know, why do you think we fall so hard and attract these emotionally unavailable people in our lives?
Oh, that is a great question, and there's so many answers. Um, I'm going to start with I told you earlier that I had a realization about myself today around this topic. So I'll start there,
I
and
can't wait.
then I think we'll dive into some other things that I think you and I have talked about before, and I think we're on the same page. But first, I'll start by disclosing my realization, and that was um, today when I was thinking about our life today, and I was very excited, and I was thinking about you and our friendship and everything. And um, a few moments later, I was in a text conversation with a guy that we like each other, and it dawned on me when I went back and I looked at our text messages that I was being so cryptic and mysterious, and you know where I'm going with this, don't you?
I think I
And
do.
he would ask me questions and I wouldn't answer them, and I was being very coy, and I thought I was being sexy and mysterious, but what I was really being is emotionally unavailable myself. And I caught myself, Ken, and I could not wait to tell you because it was comical, as a dating coach, we screw up sometimes. I screw up sometimes. And so I went back to this guy and I left him a voice message, and I'm like, look, I realized this is how, and I told him everything that I just told you, and I apologized and, committed to being more expressive and being less mysterious. However, beyond that, I had to check in with myself, and I'm like, well, why am I being like that? And I'm like, oh, because I am scared he's going to hurt me, because I I don't need to talk about him, but it's like he brings up like this fear in me that I'm like, ooh, I don't know. I feel like if I like him, he's going to, screw me over, break my heart or something. So then I started holding back, and that's a lose-lose for everyone. That is not a foundation to start a relationship. And I thought you'd find that comical.
Oh yeah, I do actually. In fact, as you were saying it, my brain went, "Oh, here we go." It's the I don't want to be hurt because I've been hurt, so I'm going to put my walls up and just play mysterious and be coy and
Yes.
keep everyone at arm's like I've done that too. I mean, yep, I hear you on that. I hear you on that, and fair enough. I mean, how many experiences do we need in love to make us not be emotionally unavailable? I mean, I think it's hard. I think it's really hard. And I think that, I praise you for being that self-aware to figure it out and be like, whoa, I can watch myself like this. I actually had a similar experience like that too. This year, in fact, with two guys in a row where I could just tell I was not into either of them. And it was one of those really difficult situations where I was like, am I becoming avoidant? This is very unusual for me. Like, why am I so disinterested in these people? And I think that the thing as daters, anyone in dating needs to realize is the fact that we do shift in and out of those avoidant, anxious, secure attachment
Yes.
styles from time to time. And I think that, with enough sort of experience regarding ourselves, or we just feel overwhelmed. Oh my goodness, my walls will go up. Like if I'm the kind of guy where I like to be communicated with consistently, but consistency for me
Mm-hmm.
does not mean I need to be messaged at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I just need one message a day, max. And sometimes when I've had guys who consistently message me and then say things like, oh, don't you want to receive love? I'm like, whoa, like, I don't need that much in my life. I have a threshold for how much I'm willing to take. And so I think that, you know, and this is stuff that I always tell my partners on dates. Like on date one, I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. If you're going to date me, I just need to let you know. I like to be messaged at least once a day. I'm not asking for much, but this is just who I am. If you're busy, just tell me you're busy and we'll communicate tomorrow. It's okay. So I
I
think
love
that,
that so much.
yeah, because I mean, I think for me, it's more of a matter of boundary setting because then I'm like, oh, good. Well, I'll clear out the avoidance and I'll clear out the anxious and I hopefully will find someone who can respect my boundaries and so it'll all work out. But circling back to, you know, the why of how we do this. So here's my revelation that I found out when I did forgiveness with my ex is that I actually realized something about what I was looking for at the time. And I wonder if you can relate to this too. Like, I went back in my brain and was like, why did I attract that in the first place? And I was like, oh, it's because I wanted a guy who was tall, who was sexy, who was foreign, who could speak a second language, who worked at a, you know, a high earning job, who had looked like they had their stuff sorted and,
Mm.
you know, was very intelligent. And my brain went, oh my goodness, I set myself up for this. My type is literally emotionally unavailable because I have not put any emotional intelligence into that package at all. And
Mm.
I think so many of us consciously will go, oh, well, I'm looking for emotional availability. It's like, no, you're not. Like subconsciously, so many of us are looking for that sexy, unique, you know, je ne sais quoi kind of person. And it's because we have a lot of gaps inside of us. And I often found myself being quite drawn to the more affluent guys at the time when I wasn't so well off and I didn't really have, you know, a career which I loved because it was a point of difference for me. And it was that point of like, oh, good, you can fill this up for me. So psychologically, that's the revelation I had.
Woo, Ken. Gosh. I have been there too. I've been attracted to those guys many a times. And gosh, there's so much there. It's like where do we start? How do we unpack this? Um, I've found that a lot of people, including myself, we like a little bit of that chase. And I think when we are not fully healed and when we're not fully ready, then we'll call in that those people that check a lot of the boxes, you know, like you said, they're successful, they're sexy, they're this and that. And yet inside what we really need, we're not really getting because we're not really ready and they're not really ready. And we attract what we are. We don't attract what we want. And so when, you know, we could sit there all day and with our cute little, you know, list that we have and like, I want this, and this. And a lot of people, I don't know if you experience this, but a lot of people that I come across, a lot of times they want love so bad, but really their heart isn't ready yet. You know, there's so many people that have been hurt. And I mean, goodness, we could go out in the street anywhere in Australia or anywhere in the States and start talking to people, and everybody's been brokenhearted. Everyone. And everybody's carrying around their broken heart and trauma. And you and I talk about trauma a lot privately.
Oh, yeah.
And whew, Ken, I think so much of it is trauma. So much of it is trauma stemming from our childhoods that is continuing to play out in our adulthood.
I completely agree with everything you've shared because I mean, none of this happens in a vacuum. And I think that sometimes the people who come to us will say, why am I so unlucky in love? It's like, well, actually, you're not. There's a reason for everything. I mean, I think with childhood trauma, you know, and just for clarity for our audience, I want to be clear. You don't have to have been molested, like physically abused or gone to a war to have trauma. Trauma, in my words, is basically an interruption or something that has caused you to deviate from, you know, having a healthy, sustainable life. And it's left an imprint on your nervous system. And the way I also describe it is too, it's like every one of us has like a map inside of us of where we're going and who we should be. But trauma acts as sort of like a detour, and it kind of is almost like a U-turn in that we keep returning to it until we realize that we are safe. We don't have to return to that site again and again. And the only way to do that is by being our best healers. And that's obviously a conversation that we can talk about it for days and days. But I think
Yeah.
just in regards to emotionally unavailable people, I think a combination of conditioning, because we are in a society that heavily values, particularly white straight men who are, in corporate, who look like they have everything sorted, who are well off and affluent and caregivers and providers. And I think that as a consequence, when we're constantly bombarded with the message that, well, feelings don't matter, feelings don't matter. So why should we bring up feelings when we've been told that that's not a good thing to have? So I think conditioning plays a heavy part of it with the trauma.
Oh, you are so right. And that drives me crazy. I'm like, if we are not dating to catch feels, to fall in love, to be head over heels about each other, what the heck are we doing here? Like, I don't want any part of this world without the feels, okay?
Mm.
Like, no, count me out. And you're right. It's embedded into our culture, and I'm sure it stems the whole spectrum from heterosexual to homosexual relationship. It's a whole spectrum. It's not cool to care. And so what do we do then? I mean, most of us, um, we're taught that if we're successful, if we have money, if we're attractive, then we will get attention, we'll be popular, we'll get an Instagram following and all this stuff. And we're all pining for love on a very surface level. Yet when it comes to romantic relationships, we're like, don't get too close. I don't know if I want to fall in love. And it's like, I'm just shaking my head. It's cool
Exactly.
to care. It's good to have the feels.
I completely agree with you. But isn't it crazy how we can consciously say that? We can say, like, it is cool to get the feels, it is cool to care. And yet sometimes when we're with someone who, does fit that category, if we haven't done the healing, they're not a good fit for us. Like, I have heard so many stories of men, women, they'll say, I've got a great partner, but I'm nervous. Like, I feel anxious. I have a lot of trauma around this, and I'm worried about losing them. And then they lose them. And then they worry and they complain and they say, well, look, I feel like I destroyed that last relationship. And it's like, you weren't ready for that last relationship. And it's not to be dismissive or rude to what went on. Like, obviously it's tragic, if you've lost someone who's secure. I mean, look, that is a shame because there's only a handful of us out there. But I'd say that when it comes to the lesson of these moments, I'd say that, I think that in order to attract secure, and this goes back to what you were sharing, we have to become secure in ourselves. And I think that that in itself can happen within the framework of a relationship. But sometimes we have to realize too that that healing needs to take place outside of a relationship, and we can't expect that person to facilitate our healing.
Oh, you are so right. I think it's imperative for everybody to have a coach, a mentor, a therapist. That's a red flag for me. If I'm dating somebody and they've never gone through therapy or any type of personal development, I'm like, no, no. Because we all have shit. We all do, and it's so important for us to be working on it outside of the relationship. And um, a lot of people will ask me if I'm a matchmaker, and they want me to be a matchmaker because they just a lot of people are like, I'm good and I'm just ready for my person. And one of the reasons why I don't do matchmaking, it's first of all, it's just not my forte. And the other thing is that I could present the most perfect partner for a client, be like, ta-da, here they are. And a lot of times if our issues are not addressed, if we're not healed, we're going to screw it up, because people who are unhealed are not going to present themselves in their best self as their best self. And a lot of times they're going to play out the same patterns and the same toxicity that they did in their past relationship. So yeah, I can't stress enough. Have a mentor, have a coach, have a therapist, please.
I agree.
Even if you think you're good.
I completely agree with everything you've shared. And I think to add to that too, I'd also say that I think one of the things that bothers me is when people say, I went to a therapist once and I'm fixed. It's like, what? You're fixed? As if to say, one, you were broken, and two, that everything's done. Like,
Yeah.
are you naive? Like, there is no such thing as you being broken or you stopping your healing process. Like, it just doesn't work like that. And so I hear you and I agree with you completely. And it does bother me when I've dated guys who, oh, they use the language like, oh, have you ever had depression before? Because if that's the case, I really need to be very mindful about what I say. It's like, dude, every single human being on the planet can suffer depression and anxiety. It's not limited to a thyroid condition. Like, just, and I think for me, that's my red flag, is the ignorance around this entire space sometimes. And I think that when it comes to the attitudes we have, it can say a lot. And so I think when it comes to emotionally unavailable people, it's interesting because they're the ones that need the most amount of work, and ironically enough, are usually not the ones seeking the work.
Yes. My therapist always says that most of the people that go into therapy are dealing with the people that won't go to therapy,
Yes, I
that need
agree.
to be in therapy. um, which is it's sad. And like I was saying earlier, that everybody has shit. Everybody is also, uh, everybody everybody is yearning for that deep love, for someone to really see them, understand them, accept them for who they are. And it blows me away on that note how many people who are super successful, who are attractive, have so many amazing qualities, especially my high-end clients that I have, big executives, athletes, these big people. How many of them are so scared? Like, there's these heavy hitters. Like, one of my NFL clients, he's like, I kill people for a living, and the thought of falling in love scares me. It scares me. I don't want to get hurt. And that just blows me away. And I see that so often. And to me, that's important to share, because it levels the playing fields. When we're together and I'm like, okay, I know you've been hurt. I know you've been, like, your heart's been ripped to pieces, and you felt this, and I have too. And there's this camaraderie. And then also it's like, okay, you've been hurt, I've been hurt. You don't want to be hurt anymore. I don't want to be hurt anymore. Can we just come together and see if we can make some love?
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that just, make perfect sense? And, that's the thing, is that in an ideal world, that would be so easy to do, because look, we've both gone through our own crap. Let's heal independently whilst working interdependently together. Because I think that is ultimately the glue that keeps it all going. And I think sometimes, as you're mentioning, with these high achievers, these people who, quite frankly, this is sort of another part of the trap, is that I see a lot of people who try to win their partner or try to impress them, and that catches them in this horrible loop of wanting to catch someone who's emotionally unavailable, and that just forces them to run away even more. And to add to that too, this is the real funny thing that I identified with people who, typically are actually anxious attached and going for the avoidant partners, which a lot of them do all the time because it's a match made in hell, is they're equally emotionally unavailable. If you are ignoring your own anxiety in your gut about the person that you're seeing, and that's causing you pain, but you persist knowing that love will prevail and that, everything is worth it when you put it together, you're just as emotionally unavailable as the one guy or girl who's running away from you.
Ooh, that is so true, because you are, a lot of times when somebody is in that space, they are functioning from, this place of, like, the four F's, the fight or flight, freeze, fawn. They're in a stressed being, and so they're not showing up authentically, and they're not in a safe place. And when our heart is not in a safe place, uh, yeah, it's to your point. It's kind of all a mess. And so thank you for really calling out the other person too, because that old adage, it takes two to tango. And if there's
100%.
not another person that's not either showing up and saying, hey, listen, I've been, you know, whatever, if it's calling out a situation, like I've been texting you and you're not responding, what's going on here? Like being checked or called out, then it's just going to keep going.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely. And not only in that experience, it will happen again and again in various times. And the common excuse I hear is, I don't want to lose them. And it's like, well,
What are you
do you
losing?
have... Exactly. But that's the thing, is that they think that that's their source of love. Like, they will literally say, like, I can't live without that person, is the subconscious thought that's running in their head, because they have essentially pedestaled that person. They've gone ahead and completely self-abandoned because that person has taken all their love. And as a consequence, when they are in that situation where, they are dating this person and they are, incredibly anxious with what's going on, that's why they have such devastating heartbreak, because it's betrayal of expectations. They're losing the biggest source of love that they have, because they don't have any inside of themselves. So I think another piece of this puzzle is that when you've got like a shaky self-esteem, low self-worth, and your love tank is nil, and your source of love is external validation, oh boy, you've got a
Ooh-wee.
recipe ripe for emotional unavailable people.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, you are so, so right. Um, I came up with this exercise for some of my clients that were really struggling in those situations where they were dating someone and they were feeling like just it didn't feel right. Yet they were just so in it and they wanted it to work that oh, do you see my cute my cute puppy back there?
Oh, so cute.
This is my baby. Oh. Anyway, um working with people and there's just so like I want this to work with a person but it doesn't feel right, and it's hard to mitigate all those emotions, right? When we're stuck in this place, we're like, okay, I want this person but it doesn't feel good, and was what I came up with was the board of directors meeting. And the board members are all different parts of you. So the board members are your mind, your heart, your body, and your intuition.
I love it.
And all of those parts of you, they have an opinion, right? I mean, if you do this visualization and you're sitting at a table, then you can conduct a meeting as your whole person and say, okay, body, what do you have to say about the situation? The body's like, listen, I really like this person. Yes, I just want to do them all day and night, la la la. And then you turn, you're like, okay, heart, what do you have to say? And the heart's like, oh, hell no. I don't care what the body has to say. I am not down for it. I don't feel safe. Like there is something off here. And the mind is like, they check some of our boxes, but not all of them. And then, okay, intuition, which I always like. Intuition is the ruler. It's the chief, the head honcho there. And intuition's like, no, no, that's simple. And so it's when somebody does that exercise, it allows all parts of them to be seen and heard because they're all valid, right? Our body has needs, our heart has needs, and um, we sometimes each one of those are being fulfilled, and sometimes we don't want to end it with someone. They might be terrible for our hearts, but they might be great in beds. They might be great, mentally. They might stimulate us, and they might be crap in bed. So there's just all there's all facets of it. And when you stop and you let each part speak, then you can sit down and really hash it out, be like, okay, and a lot of times you can make sense of it, and the intuition being the ultimate deal breaker, or the decision maker rather.
I love that technique. I think it's brilliant. I think that having your intuition being the ruler is such a powerful thing, because normally we default to the brain, because the brain is normally the thing that will do the decision making. I mean, in therapy, we say your thoughts control your actions. So if you actually take a second to do that exercise, I can see it very clearly. You've got all aspects of, the various parts of you that are confused. And I think even in that confusion, it's actually really good to sort of sit down and address yourself and be like, why am I confused? Like, why would I want to feel confused? I think a lot of the time people forget that when they are feeling anxious in dating, that also causes a lot of overthinking in the brain, because then it gets into like those various parts of the body. It's like, well, I love the sex, but I don't like the fact that they're not communicating with me consistently. They were great on the last date, but why am I not hearing from them? Are they seeing someone else? And so the technique I often tell my clients is, if you're feeling anxious, what you need is clarity. So start writing down all the things that are just randomly coming off the top of your head, fact check them to make sure that they're actually right or not. And then at the end of the day, the real thing that needs to be addressed is actually the clarity between where you stand with your partner. Because a lot of the time, people are just wasting energy. They talk to, people like you and me, they talk to their friends, they talk to their family, and they're like, oh, well, I think they're doing this. They start playing mind games. They're like, oh, let's start predicting and like guessing what the other person's thinking and doing. And it's like, waste of time. Making assumptions is wasting your time. What you need to do is to ask yourself, what are you not getting from this? And then to follow that up with, what do I need in order to get to where I need to be? And intuitively, I think that any relationship really does need inner peace. And if you're not going to be happier than you are single, what's the reason that you're still in this situationship to begin with?
Seriously. And I love that exercise. I'm going to use that exercise, because you're right. It's so often that we get in our heads, and we can spiral out of control when we're sitting there making these to-do lists. I saw this great reel or TikTok or something that says, hey, just a heads up, if you are making a pros and cons list, it's a no.
Yeah.
I love that. I was like, ooh, shoot, they're right.
I agree. I completely agree. And to add to that too, I've even said publicly, like, if you're looking online to see if there's a problem, there is a problem. Back out. Like, you shouldn't be on here looking for suspicions if you aren't addressing it with your partner.
Mm-hmm. You're so right. Oh, and that overthinking can be, ooh, that could be detrimental to the relationship, and going back to that, to the attachment theories, and when someone is anxious attached, a lot of times they can sabotage because they are not, first of all, they're not present, and you got to be present to win. And when they're not present, they're spiraling out of control and perhaps making up things, and ooh, it can just get messy. And um,
It's
that's
just, it's hard. It's hard. Actually, I do have a question for you on all this too. So like,
yeah.
when you think about, all of the experiences you've had, with dating men, and particularly the emotionally unavailable men, if you could think back to a time when you would give younger Jessica advice about how to
Oh.
handle this space of love, what would be your
Aw.
advice when it comes to emotional unavailability? Like, what would you say to younger Jessica to be like, this is something you should know in order to be able to protect your heart and also to get what you're ultimately after?
Mm. Oh, that's such a great question. I would say to young Jessica, I would say, listen to your intuition, because I'm very intuitive, and I will see something right away. And I will know when something isn't right. And I would say to her, trust that feeling, because you will know right away. And younger Jessica was boy crazy. And I once told a group, when I was speaking to the group, that I think when I was born, I winked at the doctor. Like, I've always had this flirtation to me, and this wanting to please men and everything. And for me, it was the question was usually, oh my God, do they like me? What do I
Mm.
what do I need to do to make them like me? And there was this pining and blah, blah, blah. And then as I grew into a confident, healthy woman, then I realized the biggest question was, do I even like them?
Yes.
And it turned the tables, um and that can sound, pretty harsh, like, well, do I even like them? But really it made it so the scale balanced, and I was like able to see clearly instead of me pining for the male attention. It was like, oh, like they need to be pining for mine as well. And if it's a good match, we'll pine for each other.
I love that. I think that's so true because I think often a lot of the time in those situations, we often find ourselves bending over backwards to try and, make that person fall in love with us. And we'll use excuses being like, oh, well, they were present on the first date. They were there for me the last date. They're great in bed. They always tell me these amazing things about the connection and the chemistry. It's like, that's lovely. But how are you feeling right now? Because going back to that point about intuition, if your feeling is anything but good, that's the only answer you ever need. And the question that then follows is, you know, you've seen the pattern. Do you want to be part of it? Or do you want to break it? Like, that's the thing that you need to realize because you're an active participant in this too. And I think that so often, as part of being mute, this is something I always share with my clients is get clear on date one. Get really clear on date one with what you want, because I think that often at times we're scared to even assert, boundaries, even like little things too, just by saying like I did at the beginning, saying, this is how I like to be communicated with. And I do that not out of protection, but because it's like, I want to enjoy myself and I actually like to get to know my partner and I like to be able to be engaged because then it keeps me engaged and then I get curious. And if I'm curious, I want to get to know you. And if you're not participating in that exercise, well, there goes my involvement because I can't be bothered then trying to put any investment in this. Like, it's got to be a two-way street.
That's right. It does. Something you said to me on the phone last time we talked, what was it, last week? We were talking and you said something to the effect of, I don't know why we are so scared of saying things that we want to say, need to say, desire to say. And Ken, let me tell you, that hit me and that stayed with me all weekend, and I I meditated on that, and I want to thank you for saying that, because as assertive as I am, as lovely as I am, and all the amazing things, it's still, hearing that from you helped me to be more courageous, and I was able to communicate more effectively from that moment in our conversation last week. So thank you so much for that.
It's my absolute pleasure. No, thank you for sharing that with me. Because look, I think it's very easy for us to go mute on these sort of situations because we're worried about hurting someone's feelings. The minute, and I say this not out of some form of narcissism, but I say it out of a form of self-respect, that we stop worrying about how someone internalizes our words, that's the minute that we get a lot of freedom. And I think that obviously, this is the thing that I actually say to people when it comes to this topic. I say, the difference between a narcissist and you is intention. If you intend to hurt someone with your words, that's a problem. But if you just say how you feel and you go, listen, I'm not comfortable doing this. I'm sorry, this might be a shock, but I don't feel good doing this. I'm sorry, but this isn't working for me. What I need is X, Y, Z. And they have a reaction, that's their reaction, not yours. Too often, we decide to take ownership for people's replies and feedback, and that's what gets us stuck, because and this happens in everyday life too. Like, one of my clients had a challenge with work where he was struggling. He mentioned to me that he'd struggled with the idea of actually confronting his boss for a pay rise, and it's like, understandable, because you're worried about their reaction.
Yeah.
And I think when we have a society that's got these elevated positions, like your boss, like a lover, and we put so much value on it, we worry about what that person will say to us and how it will impact our future as well.
You are so right. I I write about something similar in my book. One of my favorite chapters, I talk about this time where I was pining for male attention, and I had this very visceral moment of like it all hit me. It was like the years of trying to please the male species hit me, and I realized how much time I had wasted. And it was this very powerful moment. And then from there, for myself, it was like, I'm not going to live like that anymore. And
Mm.
I call it my fuck it moment, that I'm like, fuck it. Like, I am not putting up with this anymore. I'm not. It's like, I only, like, I'm dealing with this life right now. And if I only have so much time, I'm not going to waste it on not saying what needs to be said, or worrying about, oh my God, if I tell them this, are they going to, what are they going to do back to, are they going to break up with me? Are they not going to like me? Are they going to be hurt? Are they, you know, like I'm going to be loving and kind, and I'm not going to waste my time or their time. We're just out with it.
I love that so much because, as you call it, the fuck it moment, I just think that's, that's such a self-empowering moment where you're just like, I refuse to put up with any more of this bullshit any longer. And it's quite and you know what's hard about that is that I see a lot of people project that on social media, being like, I'm not going to put up with this anymore, but they still do it. They still
Mm-hmm.
do it because they're not embodying that. So I give you massive credit for doing that, because I think it is very hard to walk that talk, because to consciously be like, I refuse to do this, you're going against years of conditioning. You're going against years of beliefs that, of questioning whether or not that's actually serving you. And I think that it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to actually take that fork in the road and go, nah, I'm not going to do that, because it's a scary alternative. People could turn on you. People could, freak out and be like, what the hell is Jessica doing? She's giving up her career. She's giving up these people. She's giving up X, Y, Z. And that's the thought that often runs in our head as well with our inner critic. And this is something that I actually share with all my clients and friends as well when it comes to boundary setting, is I say, you're going to get one of three responses from someone when you assert those boundaries. You're going to get someone who agrees with what you've shared, and they'll work with you, and they'll change if necessary. Or you'll get my infamous last two responses, which are someone agrees, but they don't change, and the patterns keep repeating themselves. Or three, they explosively react to you. And that's why when you speak your truth, you are literally illuminating who's part of your tribe. You are literally getting clarity on who's good for
Yes.
you and who's not.
It almost makes you want to have a little conflict just to see how it's gonna play out. It's like, let's weed these people out real quick. No,
Exactly.
not that we're gonna go hunting for it, but um, I do love that. Um, I know we don't have much time because you have to go save the world and everything, and I'm going to go enjoy my night. But before we go, I want to ask you the same question that you asked me. What would you say to little Ken?
Ooh,
What
that is a
advice
great,
would you give him?
that's a great question. I would say that I would tell my younger self to, I'd say to ask myself, what do I really want? And what I mean by, I know that sounds like a vague question, but like, what do I really want that matters to me? Because I was impressed a lot to, to work hard, to strive to impress others, to get along with others, but I never really was given a sense of choice. And so I think what I would say is, allowing myself that choice and that freedom to know that there are other opportunities and other alternatives out there would be really empowering, because I think too often we have a lot of scarcity. And I was ingrained to believe that, if I didn't get this job, if I didn't satisfy my bosses, that was the end of my career. If I didn't satisfy this guy, I was a failure. And so I think I would say back to myself, what really matters to me, and how can I uplift myself so I don't have to worry about what anyone else thinks.
I love that. I love that so much. Like like you were talking to little Jessica too. I was like, oh, yes, to have the freedom to make decisions for yourself, and not have to just be a slave to our societal conditionings, and to be able to say, I'm going to make the choice that I want to make for myself. And oof, I love that. Oh,
Jessica, it has been such a soul rewarding conversation as always talking with you. I loved it. Loved meeting your dogs too, by the way. They're beautiful.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, likewise, I just adore you, and I love what you're doing professionally, and I love that we are friends, and every time we speak, you and I are always vibing, and I just get so much out of our friendship. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. And I am super keen to collaborate with you again in the future too, even like helping you with your podcast, your community, because it's honestly been such an absolute joy connecting with you. And I'm just super keen to continue this friendship because it's been amazing. Just to wrap up, Jessica, where
Yeah.
can people find you if they want to communicate with you and get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me here on the gram. I'm JessicaSmith.love, as you see, so you can go follow me, and you can slide into my DMs if you like. And then my website is also JessicaSmith.love. So it's all about the love, Ken.
Not wrong, not wrong. And for your audience, if you want to find me, I'm ken.reed.co, formerly a gay dating relationship coach, now a holistic healing coach. And of course, I still help people with relationships because that's part of healing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Jessica, I will let you go. Thank you so much. I'll upload this video to IGTV shortly, and I'm going to definitely be in touch with you soon because today was amazing.
Thank you. It was. I appreciate you so much.
Speak to you later, Jessica. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.